Okay, Real 2K recap for Thursday, October 9th, 2025. Big news today. LeBron James is going to be out for the next 3 to 4 weeks, recovering from sciatica. It will be the first opening night that LeBron has missed in 23 years. If he returns on November 1st, he'll have missed 6 games. If he's not back until November 10th, that's 10 games. Obviously, with a 65 game rule for awards, it means he can't really miss more than 17 games. So this has huge All NBA implications for the 21 time All NBA player. He hasn't missed the All NBA team since his rookie season. He's made it 21 consecutive times. So that streak is now in jeopardy. While LeBron is out, Austin Reeves could end up establishing himself as the number two player on the team. This could be the year that LeBron takes a decreased offensive role. Obviously, the sciatica is probably something that's going to affect him for most of the year. Who knows how hard he's going to be going at age 40, 41. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. In the interim, Jake LaRavia, the likely starter in LeBron's absence, a big role incoming for him. He's very likely to be a big mover in the first NBA 2K roster update. You can see he's only a 74 overall right now. Marcus Smart is another player who could directly benefit, as they could start him at point guard, and Luka is essentially a small forward playing the point, so they could play him at the three. So it's just all things that got to be kept an eye on now. This is huge news for the league, for fantasy teams, for players of all ages, and mostly for LeBron James, who's in the twilight of his career. Heading over to the other LA team, the Clippers made their preseason debut against that Chinese team. They got blown out by the Pelicans. Well, they got blown out pretty bad by the Clippers. Clippers shot 63%, held the Loon Lions to 38% shooting. So they killed them. And the starting lineup for the Clippers in this one was Harden, Bogey. Beal is still recovering from offseason surgery. Bogey, for what it's worth, he came back. He got hurt in Eurobasket, and I was expecting him to be out a little longer than he was. He was limited in preseason thus far, but hey, he started in the first game. Although he did leave after 2 minutes as he tweaked his back, unrelated to his preseason injury or his Eurobasket injury. But he started in this one for Beal. We got Kawhi, and then not John Collins, but Derek Jones Jr. starting at the four. And I think this makes a lot of sense, because with Bradley Beal penciled in as a starter rather than Chris Dunn, they just needed defense in the lineup. If it was going to be John Collins starting, it was really only going to be Kawhi and Zubats as the primary defenders, and Kawhi ain't picking up anybody point of attack at his age. So Derek Jones Jr. is basically how you split the difference, having to start Bradley Beal, which was basically a condition of him signing with the Clippers. Is he was like, all right, fine, I'm going to do it for this amount, but this is the role I need to have in order for me to do it. So Derek Jones Jr., a starter this year, and that means the Clippers bench is pretty crazy. So we had Chris Paul, Chris Dunn check in at the guards. Nick Batum, John Collins, and Brook Lopez as the backup front court. Nick Batum has been a small ball 4-5 for the past 3 or 4 years, ever since joining the Clippers. But he checked in next to Lopez and Collins in essentially a jumbo front court in the reserves, and then you've got Chris Paul and Chris Dunn on the bench. This is a crazy team. This lineup in itself would have done some damage like 5 years ago as like starters, and now it's a full bench unit, which is just wild. So because Derek Jones Jr. is starting at the four, I ended up switching his position over to the four, and as a result, switching Batum over to the 3, so he's going to be the primary backup for Kawhi, and Collins and Jones the backup for each other. The Clippers are essentially 11 deep, um, as when Beal plays, Bogey's going to be the 11th man on this team, which is crazy. Somebody's always going to need the night off. I doubt there's going to be a single game where like all 11 of their top guys are active. So it's nice to have this caliber of depth across their roster. Chris Paul, for what it's worth, had a solid game in his return to LA. 16 points, and then I believe it was 6 rebounds, 4 assists, or something like that. I'm not going to read too much into the stats against a non-NBA team, but overall, really, really good stuff out of LA. Heading over to the Bucks. No Giannis or Kyle Kuzma in this one, and you'll note that I preloaded essentially all of the team rotations for each game just to aid in. I'm talking through all of these teams' lineups as I go through these videos. Why not just show you guys what the teams were doing? So this was their starting lineup. No Giannis, no Kuzma in this one. So Trent got a start, and Bobby Portis at the 4. AJ Green has been killing it the last couple of games of preseason. He was perfect tonight. 22 points in 22 minutes, 7-7 from the field, 5-5 from the 3, and 7-7 from the line. Naturally, 2K only has him at a 72 overall, not in the rotation for the team. And he's could be the opening night starter at shooting guard. They have him in the doldrums. They have no idea who he is. He's on top of being a great shooter, he's a pretty good pesky defender. So certainly somebody I have my eye on and could be a big mover in their first update. Heading over to check out what they did with their bench. Ryan Rollins and Cole Anthony. So Cole Anthony was the backup for AJ Green, essentially coming in at the 2 and then played next to Rollins when Rollins checked in for KPJ. So I thought that was an interesting wrinkle. Obviously, all these teams are dealing with injuries in the preseason, lack of availability. I don't believe Gary Harris played in this game, and he's otherwise one of the two guards on this team potentially. Could be Gary Trent, who obviously started at the 3. We'll see how the rotations go once everybody's available. But Prince, he came in for Trent at the 3. And then not Thanasis, but Amir Coffey was the backup 4 of all things. He's been a small forward shooting guard for most of his career, but he was the backup 4 for Bobby Portis, and he's trying to do what he can to make the team. So as they did give a guaranteed contract to Thanasis, so kind of an uphill battle for Coffey. And then Jericho Sims rounded things out as the backup 5. Heading over to the New York Knicks. I don't really have a ton of notes for this team aside from Malcolm Brogdon. So the end of this game, which the Knicks played against the Timberwolves, game went to overtime. The Knicks, by the way, are the only team that has just been straight running their lineup with they've ran their starting lineup in all 3 games. And their full rotation and everybody, they haven't really benched anybody. Josh Hart got hurt, so he's been out, but otherwise everybody's playing in every preseason game. So I kind of like that. It's not as much guessing. We get to see what the teams are actively thinking about what their rotations are going to be. But fourth quarter, you've got most of the backups in the game. You have McBride, Clarkson, and then Malcolm Brogdon, Pacome Dadier at small ball 4, and then Ariel Huckporty. And then for the last 6 minutes of the game, we had Tyler Kolek, Garrison Matthews, Brogdon, Mo Diawara, and then Trey Jemison. All those guys on 2 ways. Not in. I don't have them on the team because there isn't enough space to add them. The game's glitched. I've mentioned this in a bunch of my videos. But Yeah, Brogdon, I pretty firmly have as a small forward, and it's worth noting that Brogdon, when he checked out, because he started the fourth quarter with that original group, and then the rest of those other guys came in, and then Brogdon checked out like 3 minutes later for Tosan of Bomwan, I believe is the pronunciation of it. The other Knicks two-way, who is a small forward, and then the Knicks closed with that group and then played that group in overtime. So I've been ahead of everybody else so far on classifying Brogdon as a small forward. Also worth noting, Jordan Clarkson played a bit of three in this game as well. The Knicks went to like the Brunson McBride backcourt a little bit in this game against Minnie, and then had Jordan Clarkson next to them in like essentially a three guard alignment. OG Anunoby played a lot of small ball four in this game. And Towns is basically the backup five on this game. Huck Porty's not going to be in the rotation. It's basically going to be a three-man, big-man rotation with Yabusele, and however much Josh Hart is going to factor in once he's healthy. He's not going to be playing five, but those three guys are essentially the 4 or 5s in pretty much any lineup. Don't have any notes on the Timberwolves. Cleveland Cavaliers, they played against the Bulls. I don't really have any Bulls notes, but just wanted to showcase that the Cavs, again, stayed consistent with their starting lineup. So it probably is going to be Jalen Tyson on opening night. Mitchell, Hunter, and Mobley combined for 63 points in this one. So they did add Hunter to the starting lineup to bring more offense. So far, that is going off without a hitch. Craig Porter Jr. has been playing really well this preseason. He looks like he's going to be slotted in as the backup point guard rather than Lonzo Ball. It's starting to look like Lonzo Ball is probably going to be a shooting guard this year based on how he's being used in substitutions. And there was actually a Porter, Mitchell, Lonzo three-guard lineup where essentially Lonzo is the small forward. So it's looking like probably going to be removing point guard from Lonzo's not even primary and secondary position, but just altogether. Leaning towards being a shooting guard, small forward. Now it's worth noting that Sam Merrill has yet to play this preseason, and that might be a big part of why they've ran the rotations this way, as they are obviously without Garland and Max Strus. And if they're also without Merrill, there's only so many guys they have that can even play the 2 or the 3. But this is definitely just something to keep an eye on, given Lonzo's injury history. He probably, he can't guard other fast point guards or anything like that. So this was always going to be the career arc for him as he got older. Just something I have in my, it's on my radar, similar to the Brogdon thing. As these guys get older, they're going to keep moving further and further up in the positional lineup. And then one more interesting note I saw with the Thunder versus the Hornets. Thunder, they had a 4-guard lineup with Isaiah Hartenstein. That was what they started. Essentially, a Caruso at the 4, and then pick your poison on which one of these guards is the 3. They're just, the OKC is just having fun. Obviously, they can just run anybody out there, and they're going to have a good chance of winning any night. Let's finish off with the Hornets, who they gave us a different look tonight. Rather than starting Konkanepal, they started Trey Mann at the 2, and they started Moussa Diabat at the 5. So we had a bench lineup of Sexton at point. He's only played point this season. He hasn't played really next to LaMelo. He's being exclusively used as like the backup point guard for this team. So that's of note because he has spent a lot of time in his career as like a small ball 2 guard. So I think he's essentially embracing this role, and that means that if LaMelo ever gets hurt, he's primed for a large offensive role. Spencer Dinwiddie hasn't really. I'm not even sure if he's played this preseason, but it looks like he signed on a minimum contract. He's really just there for insurance. He's only going to play if one of those guys gets hurt. It's starting to look like. Sion James has been solid as like the backup too, and Kneppel, it's this was it's another look that the Hornets can give. Trey Mann has looked pretty good so far in the preseason, so they could end up starting him and then using Kneppel as like the backup for Brandon Miller, essentially staggering their offensive sharpshooters, and so that they always have somebody in the game that can put the ball in the hole from distance. Because obviously the Hornets are a little thin in terms of offensive talent. Wouldn't hurt to have a sixth man that they could rely on besides like Colin Sexton. And then Mason Plumlee made his debut, came off the bench rather than starting, and he only played like 6 or 8 minutes, if I recall. I think it was just 6 minutes. And then Ryan Kalkbrenner was the center, him and Diabat for the rest of the game. So it's looking like Plumlee might be in that Spencer Dinwiddie territory of, he signed for a minimum deal, and then the Hornets didn't bring anybody in. So people were like, wait, is he going to start on a minimum contract? That's, because he had been a starter for them before, but now it's kind of looking like he might just be in like a mentor type of role, playing. He hasn't had a big role for the last couple teams he's played for since leaving the Hornets. So yeah, I think Kalkbrenner is probably a sleeper pick for like an all rookie team. He could even end up as like the starter long term, which not long term, but like for this season. We haven't seen him start yet, but Moose hasn't exactly like blown anybody away as a starter. Kalkbrenner's a really big body. I don't know. From like what I've seen from him on like tape and whatnot, and given how like thin the center depth is in Charlotte, I think this is definitely a situation to keep an eye on. Of course, he's a 70 overall in the 2K roster, so it would not surprise me if basically the way that the team is looking by the end of the year, Plumlee should probably be the 70 and Kalkbrenner should probably be the 75, if not higher. We'll see. But thanks guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this kind of a quick hitter version of this. I hope it gave you guys more information more efficiently. That's something that I am striving to do. Let me know if you like the format. Let me know if you liked me showing the substitutions and like essentially the second units. If you thought that was helpful, let me know. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.